Hey everybody, what's going on? It is James here with Crypto Common Sense. Wanted to shoot a market update video for you. It's a little after 8:30 Central Time on September the 16th, and Bitcoin is playing games today. So before I jump into today's content, please do me a huge favor. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up button on the video. Also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And don't forget, you can check that little bell icon to get notifications anytime I come out with a new video, which is almost every single day. So let's go ahead and talk about Bitcoin real quick. This is obviously a 5-minute chart. So what I want to do is I actually do want to take a look at the 5-minute chart today because of what happened. So basically we have this dump, and this actually happened this morning. I was still in bed when this went down. I went long on Bitcoin. Yeah, I know I'm a bear. I actually went long right around 10,307, and then I closed that trade at 10,358, which was basically break even after fees because that trade was actually on Coinbase Pro, so it was a little higher fees than what some of the other exchanges charge. I went to bed, wasn't sure which way this thing was going to go. It was kind of playing in this range, and it could go either way. I wanted to see it drop below 10.2 or break above 10.4 to give me some kind of indication, and of course we dropped. So when I woke up, I was a pretty happy bear, right? We had dropped all the way down here to a little over 10,000, but then out of nowhere, what I was doing was I was waiting to go short. I actually had a short setup. It was a what's called a bot setup or a breakout trade setup. I've talked about this in a couple of past videos. I should have it somewhere on here. So this was the setup I was trying to play. And all I really wanted was to get back up to 10,190 so I could go short. Right? I was like, man, I hope I get some kind of dead cat bounce here. So when it got up to that level, I did short it. And then out of nowhere, it did this, right? It just kept going straight up. Now I'm still in that trade, so full disclosure, my stop loss was at 10.4. It's actually at 10.5. I went a little above this time to avoid any kind of shenanigans. I'm not sure which direction this market is going. I'm going to give you guys a pretty in-depth overview of this and the altcoins today, and kind of give you a couple of different possibilities that I can foresee happening. But right now, I just wanted to share this with you because obviously I'm short, and that's going to color my bias a little bit. So again, I'm short actually from 10.186.50, I believe. It was actually a trade over on BitMEX. So this is my target, right? 93.81 is what I'm gunning for, but I didn't expect this pump. I think this pump is probably nothing more than a liquidation pump to wipe out the shorts before we go down. But I have to say that when I'm looking at Twitter and social media, I do feel like I'm maybe in the minority here. It seems like the majority think that we're actually going to go up and test 11,000, so keep that in mind. But with all that being said, that's the 5-minute chart looks pretty sketchy. If I zoom in a little bit, you can see that the RSI actually got up to, it was like 95 or 96, which was just crazy. It's showing like 94 and 95, but that's actually the close. If you look at the high, the RSI was even higher than that, so it was pretty ridiculous. So that's kind of where we're at on Bitcoin. We need to watch and see what happens. But if we zoom out and we just look at a daily chart and we get rid of all the volume, the RSI, we are still within this triangle, and we seem to be testing this line over and over again. And remember what I've said about these lines in the past. The more times you test them, the weaker they get, right? Now, normally I'm talking about support, and I'm saying that the more times you test support, the weaker it gets and the more likely you are to go down. Well, the more times we test this line as resistance, the more likely we are to break through it, right? So yeah, I'm still a bear, but this is not a bearish thing. Like hitting this line over and over again, that's actually bullish, right? That's a really bullish sign because the more times you hit that thing, one of these times it's going to break through that line, or it could. And if it breaks through it, you're going to have a lot of people going long, which is probably going to create one of these great big green candles. Right, it's going to be one of those candles that you don't want to miss if you're a bull, and you don't want to be sleeping if you're a bear and you got a short open, because it's probably going to be a big one. Like one of those 5%, 10% type of candles. So I'm watching that very, very closely. I don't like that at all, and I don't like that because I still have that long-term position trade open where I sold all of my Bitcoin, haven't bought any of it back, and I do have a little bit of concern that I'm going to wake up one of these days and find out that Bitcoin has went up $500 or $1,000 while I slept. So, it's kind of between a rock and a hard spot on that deal. I'm just going to have to wait and be patient. And either the market comes back down to me or it goes up. And my buy target, if this ends up being turns into a trend trade, I've talked about this before. What I'll be doing is I'll be going long up around 11.7 if I remember right. Hang on, I'll tell you. So if I go long on this, my target, let's see. Bear with me. I will get this all set up. I think TradingViews went through some kind of update. All right. So if I go long in this, my entry is going to be up around 11.769, and my target would be up around 19.821. So we've got to get to that level before I'm going to buy Bitcoin and go long, and then my stop loss will be down around like right around 9,100 bucks. So either way, I've got plans in place, but obviously I don't want this one to be the case. This would be my least favorite, simply because I would like the opportunity to accumulate a lot more Bitcoin, and up at those levels, I wouldn't be comfortable doing so. I would just have to trade it, right? So that would be a bit of a bummer, but that is a possibility. So keep that in mind. I'm not going to zoom in a whole lot. We looked at the 5-minute chart. We're looking at a daily chart. It is what it is, right? We've got to wait for some kind of confirmation, some kind of breakout. On the daily, we're still underneath. That's a 3-day chart. We're still well underneath the 50 moving average on the daily. It's up around 10,499, right? Whereas we're way down here at 10,243. So we're not breaking through that. But on the 4-hour, we have managed to break above the 200 moving average, right? And so far, it's holding as support. It slipped down through it a little bit here, but it is bouncing back up. And it looks like it's getting a pretty good bounce there while I'm shooting this video. I hadn't really been paying attention since it went down here. So yeah, that's a pretty good bounce. I could have closed my short right there for break even, but I didn't. I'm still short. I'm not going to close it. I'll either get stopped out or it'll work out. So yeah, but overall, it's muddy. And this week, of course, is going to be a very important week. We have BACT coming up on September 23rd, so don't forget about that. That's going to be basically a week from today, my time. A little less than a week from today, actually. And that's going to be a big deal, right? I really expect that something big to happen one way or the other. I don't know which way it's going to move, but basically if people come on to BACT and they start longing Bitcoin, we could see a huge green candle, and vice versa. If they come on and they start shorting Bitcoin, we may see a giant red candle. Keep in mind that when CME launched back in 2017, the day CME launched was the start of the bear market, all right? And like I showed you in yesterday's video, if we look at a chart of Bitcoin compared to silver, the Bitcoin chart looks an awful lot like that silver chart, which is not a good thing if you're a bull, right? And this is actually, I've posted this all over the place. This is one of the places I posted on Facebook, but if you missed yesterday's video, long story short, this is what I'm talking about. This is a silver chart. This is a Bitcoin chart. They're very, very similar, and I have a feeling that Bitcoin is probably right about here in the silver chart, okay? Which would mean that the next step is going to be to go down right around that $4,000 to $5,000 area, which I've been talking about over and over and over again. Now, with all that being said, I want to take a look at alts real quick because, of course, a lot of people are calling alt season. Alts are getting a nice little pump. Coins like Ethereum are having a really nice week. Coins like Litecoin are having a nice week. I'm saying week, but it's Monday, so it's a day, right? A nice day, nice couple of days. EOS has had a nice couple of days. So there's a lot of coins that are pumping. But the thing is I'm still looking at this chart with very, very mixed feelings, because if I take this red line off and I just look at this chart, it looks really, really good. What we have is we have a really natural, well, not so much natural, but we have a nice pump going on, and then we have a natural correction, right? The correction came back down. The normal reload zone for me is going to be between the 61.8 Fibonacci level and the 78.6, which is this purple box. So we came back down into the reload zone. That's what I would want to see before I go long on any type of assets. And the other thing that I like to see is I like to see us retest the neckline. So if normally when you get a reversal, right, you'll have some type of W. You see this W right here? By the way, this works on every asset. This doesn't work just in crypto. But usually you have this really nice W, right? Something like this, and then you break out. But what I'd like to see is when it comes down and retest the neckline. So I've drawn this green horizontal line here, and you can see this was absolutely perfect. If this was an asset, right, and this isn't an asset, this is all altcoins without Bitcoin. But if this was something that you could just invest in, like an index fund, they're wouldn't hardly be a better spot in the world to invest than right here when you had these two tails come down, and this is a weekly chart. Two weekly tails slam into that neckline, right? Now you've got basically tweezers there. I mean, that's almost as good as it gets for an entry. And of course, right after that, it had this huge run up. So what I'd really like to see is this to come down and retest that green line. It's not 100% necessary. Just being inside that reload zone, it's a pretty good indication that I want to be a buyer of altcoins, especially when I look at this. This is a W, right? And this neckline, in my opinion, this is the neckline right here, okay? You can see that we've broke through it a couple of times, but so far we have not managed to close above it. So if we close above that, that to me is going to be very bullish, and I'm going to have to seriously consider buying some alts at these levels, okay? Here's the problem, and this is the one reason that I really held off. Number one, we haven't closed above that neckline, but number two, if we look at a weekly chart and we draw a long-term trend line, and this is a trend line that people seem to be ignoring, if we go from our very bottom in December of 2018 and we just draw this very unbiased trend line, right? So we'll connect to this low point over here in February, you can see this red line. And now if we zoom in, we can see that red line, it lines up almost perfectly with the neckline of our W. Now you can't see it on a weekly, but if I zoom into daily, there you have it. In fact, let me make this a different color so it stands out. We'll just make this blue, okay? So you can see that the red line, our long-term trend line, basically has convergence with this blue line, which is our neckline. And so far, we have not been able to close above that neckline, and we have not been able to close above that trend line. So that looks like resistance to me. Now, if we get a break north of that, like I said, that means that we're not only breaking north of this long-term trend line, we're also breaking north of a daily W, okay? I'm going to have to go long. Regardless of what Bitcoin is doing, you know, I've got to play the odds, and the odds are is if we break those things, that's a long trade for me, right? It's not going to be a fun trade. It's going to be a little bit of a stressful trade because I think it's going to be a high-risk trade, but I've got to trade what the chart is giving me, and that is going to be a long setup all day long. So I'm watching that very, very closely. I think what's happening right now is a couple of the major alts, you know, like Ethereum, like Litecoin, like EOS, I think they're just having these dead cat bounces, and that's pulling up the total market cap for alts. And I do think they're going to fail, but that could be my bias talking, right? That could be the fact that I didn't get in down here because I was waiting for it to get down here. Very well could be. Really, the only reason I haven't went long on alts, it really just keeps coming back to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is overdue for a correction, right? Bitcoin is not acting the way I want to see Bitcoin act. It's just moving sideways. It's not correcting. I really would have liked to have seen it correct and already be moving back up. I have this feeling, I've had this feeling for a couple of months that we're in distribution and that Bitcoin is indeed going to go down and go down hard and fast, right? Now, it won't go straight down like I've said in the past. That never happens in markets, right? I shouldn't say never, but historically that's never happened in a market. Even in a bear market, you get the staircase patterns. But that's really what's held me back from investing in alts, because it's very, very difficult not to buy, you know, a coin like OMG that's $1 when it was $28 2 years ago, or a coin like EOS for $3. A couple days ago it was $3, right? That was a $24 coin not that long ago, right? Or a coin like Litecoin, it was $62 last week, whereas it was $420 2 years ago, and it was $147 just a couple of months ago, right? So 50% off. Sounds like a really good deal, but of course, if you go in at $62 and then Bitcoin tanks, it's very likely that Litecoin's suddenly going to be a $40 coin. So that's really what's held me off. Sometimes it's just about being patient, and it's very, very difficult to be patient in this market, but I'm waiting. I'm still waiting. So that's what I'm watching on alts. If I were you, I would just draw this trend line on your chart, and then if it breaks that neckline, that's a piece of information that you can use to make a decision about how you want to trade it, right? I'm not going to tell you which way to go. I'm just going to tell you that that line's important, right? So make sure you're paying attention to that line in the sand. Other than that, though, we're just going to have to play this waiting game, or we're going to have to wait and see what Bitcoin tells us. I did see somebody on Facebook not long ago saying that they felt there was a lot of buying pressure right now. With all due respect to that person, I don't agree with that. I don't think there's a lot of buying pressure. I also don't think there's a lot of selling pressure. right? Volume is very, very low right now. Volume is actually, according to some sites, volume is at its lowest point in 2 years. And like I talked about in a video a few days ago, I believe this is mostly wash trading. I believe this is mostly just market makers buying and selling their own coins with a few retail traders in there picking them up, right? Don't think there's a whole lot of trading going on right now outside of that. You can see that volume is just getting worse and worse and worse. And typically that's going to happen right before some kind of big move. Doesn't guarantee that move is going to be down. Low volume doesn't automatically mean that the market's going to crash. Sometimes low volume means the market's getting ready to go pump. So it's, again, it's not a bearish or a bullish sign. It's just a sign that something big is coming. And that's not what we really want as traders, right? In a market that trades 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we don't like those giant moves because they could go against us. But we'll wait. We'll see how this thing plays out. We'll see if the volume picks up at all. We're going to wait and see how backed plays into this whole thing and whether that really does anything to price like I suspect. Also going to wait and see if this ends up being the descending triangle that I think it is, or whether this ends up being the bull pennant or the bull flag that some other folks, some folks are saying that they believe this is a pennant. It does resemble that. I don't believe that's what it is, but it does resemble that for sure, right? There is an argument to be made for that. This could also be a symmetrical triangle in some people's eyes. Again, I don't believe that's what it is, but some technical analysis is certainly open to interpretation, and I could see reasons or at least cases that can be made for either one of those scenarios. For me personally, I'm still waiting to retest this neckline. We have not come down and retested that. I really, really want to see that neckline get retested. Not just because I want to accumulate Bitcoin, but just because that's what should happen, right? I've shown you this total market cap chart. You can see how it came down and it retested that neckline. Yet here's Bitcoin, and Bitcoin never did. I can show you a chart, like for example, I can jump over to a silver chart, and we'll just jump over to silver real quick. And we'll go to a monthly chart. And same thing, actually we'll go to a weekly chart. If we look at this, this is the weekly chart, right? Silver came down, down, down. Actually, it's easier to see on the monthly, right? Put in this beautiful W right here, bam, 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 right? But as soon as it did, if we look, this is what you're supposed to see, right? As soon as it broke this neckline, the very next bar came down and retested that neckline right here. See that tail slid through it? That's really what we wanted to see with Bitcoin, and it never happened. See, it broke out here the week of July 15th, came back down, tested it on the 22nd, came back down and tested the week of the 29th, came back down and tested again on the week of August 5th, and then it shot up, okay? Now on silver right now, I've actually been accumulating a tiny bit of silver, but I'm actually waiting for this to come back down and retest it one more time as well. So, I'm just a very conservative investor. I don't chase the market. That's kind of the market in a nutshell. Not a lot's changed. I'm sorry I don't have any new exciting information for you, but I did want to at least give you these zones, let you know what I'm personally watching for, and also let you know about these trend lines, because I do see people talking about alt season, and I think that's premature. This could be the start of alt season, but we need to break through this trend line to really confirm that, or at least start to confirm it, right? With all that being said, please remember I am literally some guy sitting in a spare bedroom. I'm not a professional financial advisor. I'm not your financial advisor. Nothing in this video is financial advice or trade advice. You should always do your own due diligence and seek out professional investment advice before making any type of investment. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And don't forget, you can check the description for links where you can follow me on TradingView, Twitter, and also where you can join my absolutely free Facebook group. This is James with Crypto Common Sense. Trade safe.